Hey, Molly, I'm so happy to have you with me today. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
This is going to be a great conversation, an important one, and a relevant one. But let's just start. Tell the audience just a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I live in the Kansas City area, and I do e-design virtually, also design in person here, and then I'm also a real estate agent.
Which is great. So, we're going to primarily talk about e design, but toward the end, we're going to chat a little bit about you with real estate and a very current topic there as well. Yeah, let's dig in. I mean, e-design, as you know, I have an e-design service, and I started to develop it actually before COVID. It just that by the time it was all ready to launch, it was just about around the time COVID hit. And so it became so popular, which was ironically a great time to launch it, but it was not planned to launch like that. And it's been really successful. I mean, I think I've done over 100 rooms like that, and I really developed it, again, not so much of COVID and being remote with people, but just trying to simplify the process because I think so many people need design help. They need a help from or need help from a professional, but it's so overwhelming and there's a lot that comes with in-person design that you can kind of do away with e-design and I find get the same result.
Definitely.
So I think, and obviously it's not just you and I that are doing it. As you can see online, e-design is available through a lot of different ways, whether it's an individual firm like you and I have, or bigger companies or bigger platforms. And I really believe it's ubiquitous for sure. And I think it's really here to stay um, and grow even more. So let's talk a little bit about your take on that too.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think a big part of it for me too is just like you're saying, get rid of a lot of the fluff that comes with in-person design, and even working with clients in person here, we still end up using all of the same processes. It's maybe just like the initial meeting we do in person, but yeah, when you start talking to different firms or business owners, they're taking their clients from showroom to showroom or showing them every last option in the book. And a lot of times that is not what people are looking for post COVID, especially.
Yeah, I mean, it can be kind of like a daunting process, and especially if someone's never used a designer, and then every designer works a little differently, so then they're trying to figure and navigate that part out. Um, and the time, it's just there's so many things. So let's talk about kind of maybe who e-design is good for and who it's not good for. I think I've told you, I don't, no matter what service I'm doing, I don't force anybody into any of my services. You have to be, comfortable and want to do it. So even with e-design, like I'll have a, discovery call, and like I had one client say, I just really want somebody at my house a couple times a week with physical samples. And I'm like, great, then you want in person. Do you know what I mean? But I will tell you that out of all the calls I've had in 3 years, I've maybe had 2 calls like that where somebody really just wants that. Because the one thing I'll say before we dig in on like who it's for and who it's not is that the in-person interior design business model is a little bit archaic in some ways, and
Mhm.
how it works. And I didn't find it that client friendly. And so I sort of took an approach like after doing in-person design for so many years, like, how can this be more client friendly? And for me, that's kind of how mine was born.
Mhm.
And then COVID just kind of like let it blossom. Um,
So
but
cool.
you and I spoke, a bit, and it's so yeah, it's not going to be for everybody. So on your take, who do you think it is for and who isn't it for?
Sure. I think truly it's for people who just value the service and convenience. A
Mhm.
lot of my clients are busy professionals, or I know a lot of yours are moms, right?
But
Uh,
they're working full time.
oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah.
And I will say either it's, very busy professionals, or maybe it's a stay-at-home mom, but likely the kids are the busy. They're in all these different activities, there's volunteer stuff. So
Oh
they
yeah,
uh,
full-time
yeah.
stay-at-home moms equally, if not more, but yeah, absolutely. Time is is a commodity. Yeah.
So that is probably the primary, and another huge category, which I think we'll talk about later, is short-term rentals and investors in that kind.
Right. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, if the only other thing I found of somebody who might not be for is I had one call where the person just wasn't very comfortable using a lot of technology and being on the computer.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's fair too. So,
Yes.
but if you're comfortable, if you use Pinterest, which so many people do, and you're on there anyway looking for your house and you're ordering things online anyway, e-design's really for you. I mean, what I discovered was the result that I give the client from an e-design service is the same result they get from in person, but it's a lot less money because I charge less for it. And
Mhm.
it's way less time for the consumer.
Yeah. I've even
Um,
started listening to them about, and I started, well, I did start doing virtually, and that's, when I started my business, it was a lot of virtual straight from the get-go. But over time, learning to them and even or listening to them, and even learning that they're so strapped for time, they don't want these 12 different payment structures. They want simplicity and streamlined and clarity. And ultimately, they want the end result again without all the fluff.
Right, and it's I have a turnaround time on mine of 2 weeks or less,
Yeah.
and when I'm working in person, it takes so much longer. It's so much more of the client's time because I'll have to be there at least once a week, and it's their time to go through samples and meet with me, whereas on the e-design, we meet once, and
Yeah.
then I do everything, and then they have, like, a follow-up meeting if they need it, but it's so much less time for them.
Yes.
And the only misnomer I'm finding with it is people think, well, so it's less time, so my price does reflect that. But it doesn't mean that when you offer e-design, what I want to make clear to people listening is that it doesn't mean you're not working with an experienced designer. So I went to school, I have 15 years of experience. So you're still working with an experienced designer and you are still paying the way you do in person for somebody's expertise and professional opinion.
Yes.
It's not just, and it is their time. I mean, we do spend up to 20 hours per e-design project to put it together. And some people don't realize the time behind the scenes to put it together either. So I just want to like mention that. But
Yes.
because in our industry, for whatever reason, price always seems like negotiable or like,
Oh my
why
goodness.
do I need to pay you? Which I still can't figure out to this day. But
Yes.
a lot of us have paid for degrees and we have overhead, we have people that work for us, we have a website we run, the list goes on. So, that's interesting.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think like anything else, if something just doesn't feel comfortable for you to do, then don't. But for me, the majority of people have done it and absolutely loved it. And it's just been like a breath of fresh air.
Yep. I say that so often, that exact term, a breath of fresh air,
Yeah.
because it truly is just getting you the end result in a relatively simple way and
Yep.
stress-free. And I do, there are, some services like you're saying that I think are just targeted, without a whole lot of experience too. And with that, you don't know what kind of lead times you're getting, what kind of quality. So I think, like you're saying, with the experiences, you're giving that trust of not wanting to spend the time seeing every last option and giving the trust to people who are familiar with the items and the trade and really providing a good experience and good quality everything.
Yeah, I mean, because they're still getting a curated design. It's not every design we do is different. I work on it just as I would if I was working with somebody in person. Like I take into account what are their needs, what are their limitations,
Yep.
on and on. And so it's very curated
Mhm.
and customized
Yep.
still, which I think that's what makes it unique. They're still getting that personal attention.
Yep.
And I'm actually able to turn the design around quicker because I sort of have, instead of being interrupted with sort of constant meetings and constant trips to the client, I can kind of sit down and really hammer it out. And
Mhm.
it's just a better result.
Yeah, and what I realized too in talking to some local designers who have been doing this in person for a long time is I didn't realize so many of them are not giving the deliverables that we give. So a
Oh,
lot of times
interesting.
clients aren't even seeing a visual of what the room is going to look like altogether,
Oh,
which then
wow.
make or break, you know, you
Yep,
can look at a room altogether and love everything in it, or you can look at each individual piece and maybe have some questions or confusion. So I
definitely.
do love that the deliverables in a sense feel higher.
Definitely. And you know, just been naturally chatting about, you know, what are the benefits of e-design. When you and I were talking, and it's escaping me now, but there were a couple you brought up that were so good. I mean, time is definitely a huge one. Saves
Mhm.
time for the customer.
Yep,
Um, for me, price, you get a better price through e-design. My in-person's way more expensive. It's much more of my time.
yep.
So there's that. And then I don't know if you remember, there were a couple that you mentioned that were so good.
Yeah, to me, it's the convenience of and
Mhm,
it's lifestyle. I think we all have totally shifted priorities in the last couple years that
mhm.
you're able to invest that time elsewhere. Oh, I know that's a huge reason that my clients tend to do it.
Yeah. So the other benefit that I think too is that with traditional design, with the way the business model is for most interior designers and the way I had to run it too, that I sort of wanted to do away with, it was like I had to order everything for them and you're kind of standing over the client like I need a check now for all of this because we have to prepay our vendors and whatever. And with the e-design, I think what is so nice is that I can spec everything out and they can go online and use their credit card and just pop it in and feel like comfortable. And, you know, there's still things that I order from time to time for clients, but for the most part, they have that flexibility. So they also have the flexibility of like, I don't have to order it all at once. I can just order these 2 things now, and then next month when I have more money, or in 3 months when I have more money. I've
Mhm,
even done e-design for someone who they had bought the house, but they weren't moving in for a few months, and this
mhm.
way they had the plan so that when they were ready to order, it was just all ready to go and execute.
Yep,
Um, but you know, the flexibility with using the internet and embracing the internet, you know, as here, I think designers need to embrace the internet is, you know, obviously here to stay and then some.
yes.
You know, clients don't realize I did a whole episode about it, but like, you know, the designer discount is barely in existence anymore because the
Mhm,
online pricing has matched it, if not below. There
mhm.
was one thing I quoted, and because we have to pay such a hefty shipping rate, my price was gonna come in higher
Oh,
because, you know, on the internet, they incorporate free shipping in the price, but they're buying in such volume. People don't realize we don't get the bottom price in the ladder. You
yeah,
know, the stocking retailers get a price, big wholesalers get a different price, so we're not at the bottom of the rung there as far as the pricing, and that seems to also be another huge misnomer in the business.
definitely. Yeah,
But I do think like my clients have loved the flexibility of
mhm.
just, oh, okay, I can go online when I'm ready. There's no pressure. There's no one sort of hovering over me, right?
I think another topic to that point is maybe the concern that there isn't the standard installation process. And with
Mhm.
that, I said so many companies have wonderful white glove delivery services too.
Really good. Yep.
So you're maybe putting together like the bedding or, lamps, simple stuff, but the bulk of it can be installed for you and again, stress free. And you're saving that money in other places to spend on the white glove.
Yeah, because with my e-design, I give tips and I'll be like, when you order, you know, select white glove if
Hmm.
it's available.
Yep.
And I give kind of tips for when furniture comes in damaged and what to do and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely less expensive and more time efficient on that end of the spectrum as well for
Hmm.
both the designer and the customer. So, I mean, to me, it is such a win-win.
Yes.
I've even had clients where I'm like, if you really want me in person, I will charge you, but honestly, we are going to get the same result. So
Yes.
if you want to, you know what I mean? And there and some have been like, okay, well, let's give it a shot. And I was like, if we give it a shot and it's not right for you, because this was like a local client, I'm like, you won't lose money. Like the design's paid for, and I'll come to you and like the extra time we'll just add on. And I sent it over and they were like, oh my God, this is perfect. This is so
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah. It's
Um,
so self explanatory because we can give the tools everything they need. Oh,
we really can.
was a lot of my clients love not having to prepare for us to come over.
That
So,
was it. That
yes,
was it.
yes, they're not having to clean, they're not stressed about the dog, all the things. It's so nice. So it can
Every
really be a quick meeting and that's it.
It's funny you said that because so every time I go to a customer's house, I feel like it's when we go to the hairdresser and I'll
Yeah.
always like go to my stylist and be like, "Oh, I really make it look much better than I did today," right? We're always telling them. And it's so funny because I'll go to someone's house and like, "I'm so sorry, like it's a mess." And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, "It's okay, like you're living here." And I'll say oftentimes like I left my house and it's a mess too. Like I was rushing out myself and I've got dishes in the sink, like don't worry about it. But I think that's huge because I have noticed people feel a ton of pressure when they know we're coming over.
Yeah.
And I hate that. Like, I don't want people to feel like that.
I finally had a client tell me that it was a vulnerable thing for her to have me, and it took a while to even have me because it felt so vulnerable showing me. And that was kind of the final straw where I'm like, you know what? Every time I go, they say, "Oh, my house isn't clean," when you know they were just cleaning it. And it's just like, so I've also, if I'm doing stuff in person, I've started to say, "Hey, don't clean." Or if they're sending in photos, don't clean, just as is great.
Yeah, I mean, people don't understand, and I was actually just talking about this the other day because I woke up the other morning. I was just the night before I was so tired.
Uh-huh.
And I woke up the other morning and I had like garbage that needed to go out and dishes in the sink and the dog had made a mess and and I was trying to tell people like it happens in my house too. It's life and you need to live in your house. But and I was giving tips on like, well, how can you make it easier when that happens? But I do people I think feel really judged by us, which is too bad. But I get it. I get it. And I do think it does take, I think to your point, it just takes so much stress away in general
Yeah.
having the e-design. It's just there's a lot of stressors for clients and it just alleviates all that, and then because that's alleviated, I almost find the project can go smoother because people feel more relaxed. And
Yep.
so it's almost easier to discuss with them their wants and needs and they don't feel pressure about the budget. They don't feel pressure that, I'm in their house looking at their stuff or judging with the way something looks. And I just think yeah, I just can't say enough about it, obviously.
Yeah, and even like you're saying, if there were things that they weren't ready to purchase yet and just wanted to purchase a little bit slower than maybe we would prefer, there's not that pressure either of, yeah, you're paying for the design, but you don't have this huge financial burden to be buying every last thing in there if something comes up.
Exactly. Or like if you want to break it up, or I
Yeah,
even have people, they'll do multiple rooms at a time with me.
cool.
So like each week we'll meet and we'll do multiple rooms. So they'll be like, all right, I got my living room plan. I'm going to do that now. And then Jill did my dining room, but I'm going to, order that in like a month or two. But at least I know the plans here. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just all around so much easier. And I think that's why it's been popular, and why we see it more and more of it, and why it's not going to go away.
No.
Yeah. So having said that, about not going away and all this other stuff, with AI coming onto the scene in everybody's industry and everybody's business,
Yeah.
um, both personal business and,
Yeah.
working world. Let's talk about that. What do you think the effects of AI are going to be on maybe e-design?
I had somebody recently ask me if I thought that that would take over our jobs, and my answer was no. I think it can be a tool for us,
Mhm.
but a lot of people aren't even familiar with it, first of all.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there will be some really cool tools, but
Mhm.
it's just not the same as getting the full custom experience with the tips. And, there's always going to be a heart behind it. So I think it makes a world of difference.
Yeah, I mean, with AI, the little that I've explored it, not even for design, but for other things,
Yeah.
it's missing a lot of nuance. Now, it's probably going to advance further,
Hmm.
but I think something to consider on the consumer end is if they think, well, with AI, I can just like say this and it'll do my room up. But a lot of people don't even know how to describe what they want. And if
because
you don't describe it very particularly to AI, it won't know what to grab.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's gonna be interesting. I think like anything else that's come up, as a business owner, I'm just gonna adapt.
Mhm,
So, I mean, look, people didn't think much of the internet, and still, I feel in our industry, designers still haven't fully embraced that as far as where people purchase. I
mhm,
have fully and then some embraced that,
mhm,
um, and that's not going away. AI, could be just as ubiquitous, but, I will adapt, and I do think it's gonna be a great tool, like you said, um, to maybe enhance what we are able to do. But,
mhm.
consumers they don't always know what they want, and they need a human to sit down with them, ask a series of questions, and figure that out.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think too, maybe comparing it to Pinterest for
Mhm.
consumers, it can be another like source of inspiration, but
Mhm.
all the time you see a Pinterest photo and aren't quite sure why your space didn't turn out exactly like that. And
Mhm.
we know the things that will take it from, the current to more like the inspiration photos.
Yeah. And, we may know of certain resources
Yes.
that are unique, or unique ways of doing things. I think with anything that comes out, especially in technology, it has this double-edged sword of it can enhance or it can hurt, right?
Yeah.
And I think as a business owner, I just lean into the part where it can enhance. Because I mean, you could look at the internet and have gone, okay, well, that's going to just kill procurement for designers. And maybe it did. But what's the enhancement? Well, I came up with a service where fine, let consumers use it. It
Mhm.
doesn't cut my job out. It actually is better for my job because I'm being paid now for my expertise, not for my discount that barely exists anyway.
Yeah.
So I think it's like anything else, social media has a double-edged sword. It can do a lot of good, it can do a lot of harm. I think we're gonna
Mhm.
see the same thing with AI.
Mhm.
Um, and I think with AI, it'll be interesting to see like what regulations come into play because
Yeah.
it's gonna be sort of like plagiarism, right? So, like, if somebody tries to write a book all AI, are they gonna regulate that and disclose this was written with AI, not from an author? And I think
Mhm.
for you and I too, is the design an original design, or are you gonna have to disclose it was an AI design? So, I mean, I think all this is still yet to be seen, but I think
Mhm.
we need to prepare for it because I think it's gonna be as, you know, broad as the internet at
Yeah,
some
I
point.
don't think it's gonna go away, so
Yeah.
we might as well. Yeah.
So I think they're figuring out, in certain areas, does it need regulation? So, because I guess if you did write a book, let's say somebody wrote a book from cover to cover,
Yeah.
should it be disclosed that book was written with Chat GPT
Yeah.
and the author, right? Because they were,
Yeah.
or can someone just really put their name to it? I think everybody's going to have to figure that out. It's going to
Yeah.
come up in a lot of different fields.
That
Um,
is wild because you really do have to know how to prompt it and give it more and more information.
you do.
So, there are probably some things that people are gonna really excel at, and they should because they've spent the time into doing it and utilizing it as a tool. So, yeah, it'll be
Yeah. I
interesting.
mean, yeah, I think it's gonna be like you said, it's going to be a tool. Whether it takes over everything, that is really yet to be seen. It's not nuanced enough. I know it will get more nuanced, but will it ever really get nuanced to the point where it can infuse that personal touch? I don't know. That's right.
Yeah.
That's the big question mark.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's something to talk about, and, think about. It'll be interesting to see, and maybe you and I'll have a future podcast where we look back on this and be like, "Whoa, we never even imagined."
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure.
I mean, I'll never forget, I think it was on the Today Show when and I'm a bit older than you, so this will date me a little bit, but on the Today Show when the internet was really just here, and I
Uh-huh.
think it was Katie Couric, and she was like, "Okay, so what?" She looked at her co-anchor and she was like, "So what is this WWW worldwide?" And really at the time, because I lived it, it did feel like that. It was like, "Well, what is that?" And we're not really using that. And then here it is, and we're thinking like, how did we ever live without it? So that could happen with AI. I mean, it
Uh-huh.
could.
Yeah.
Um, but again, the internet is limited too, right? But it's a tool for all of us.
Right.
So I don't
Yeah,
know. I just think it's fascinating to discuss it.
I completely agree.
So anyway, let's segue into your job as a realtor. And I know you're focusing on another really hot segment for designers, which is short-term rentals. So that could be an Airbnb, a VRBO. I'm tipping my toe a little bit in that water as well with a little hospitality package that I want to try out. But I think it's an interesting um, and definitely becoming more and more popular avenue. So, from your real estate background and design, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Sure. Well, I don't actually think I mentioned this to you before, but just kind of a passion project that I'm getting started now is I have land in Tennessee. So I'm going to be building my own short term rental.
Awesome.
Yeah, which I'm so excited about. But I have done for a couple people, investors in different states, complete e-design of the whole short-term rental. And one of the times we completed the whole design process, and I decided I have a reason to go out to where this property is. So
Mhm.
I'm just going to go ahead and do the install and the full shebang. So
Sure.
I actually went, installed the whole thing down to the toilet paper, the silverware, had it locked and loaded. I've had my own short term rentals before, so I felt pretty good about that.
Yep.
All before the owners ever even saw the house. They bought it, we went through the process. So they never saw the home until it was completely ready to go and be rented out.
It's so
So,
great. I mean, so that's just another great application for e-design because, you could have a rental. You could be, a homeowner that has a rental in another state. And, because I mean, that's the thing with e-design. I help everybody all over the country. You can help anybody no matter where they are. And like in your case, if it's someplace that you can get to,
yeah.
like I want to test mine out in an area that I can get to as well, that I can frequent if I need to,
Uh-huh.
just to see. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that it's really a new avenue for designers, for realtors.
Yeah,
And some designers like yourself, I know, are investing in their own VRBO property. And what they're doing is like you can kind of brand it, which is cool.
totally. Yeah,
Um,
I've seen that. I mean, and I will be hopefully doing some of that. But I
yeah,
also have recently talked with somebody about you can provide e-design services to realtors as well when they're getting ready to list homes or people getting ready to sell their homes that want to make sure it's positioned to profit. So I that was kind of eye-opening to me, and I'm in real estate and I still hadn't done that for other people. So
Yeah, no, that's another great avenue, I think, for it. And I think that benefits the home seller, the home buyer, the realtor, the designer. Again, it's one of those just kind of win-win scenarios that, e-design allows a lot of these capabilities.
mhm,
Yeah,
definitely.
so good. Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of never ending. The list kind of can go on of how it can be applied, where it can help.
Yeah.
Um, and it just, because you can make the service what you want.
Mhm.
And I think that's really great. So
Yeah.
when and the thing too with Airbnb, I don't know what the statistics are. You and I talked briefly. I don't know if there is one yet, but it is in general terms known that if you use a designer for your VRBOs, your Airbnbs, you will increase your bookings and you can increase your rate.
Yes, it is. There are studies, I don't know them off the top of my head, but I have even seen recent posts with them. It's a well-known thing, and I would even argue that with going to sell your personal home too. I mean, that's obviously well known.
100%, and it's interesting. I was looking at a summer rental in a place we normally go over the summer. The rental we usually have, we didn't take this year because we can't stay as long because we're doing another trip. But I was looking for something for a shorter time, and I found this one, and I knew where it was because had walked past it a lot of days, and it's really cute from the outside. And on the inside, the decor was like an explosion, when there's just too much stuff, and it was a small space.
Okay.
Um, and the decor wasn't necessarily bad, but there was way too much of it. Like
Okay.
the window treatments were just a little bit too busy. It was just a little too cluttered. And I thought I could literally even go in there and like edit what she has.
Totally.
And so this was interesting because it's in a town where typically July now is fully booked. You can't get anything. And the first 2 weeks of July were available for this rental.
Okay.
And I'm like,
My goodness.
that shouldn't be because her location is primo. I
Yeah.
know her location and the realtor that I work with, I called her because we were thinking of renting it. And I said, I gotta tell you. And I told her, and I was like, honestly, this would be booked already. Like, and it would take no time, you
Yeah.
know? And so it was just a good example of a place where it's like it's small, it just had too much going on, it could be totally refined, and I
Yeah.
could have that place looking like a little gem in a second, and that would have already in February when all the other ones got booked, that would have already been booked. Like, the
Yeah.
fact that the first 2 weeks in July were available for this rental was
Uh-huh.
nonsense because the location is great. So it was just interesting. It was just a good example of looking at something and going, that person could have this A booked and B could be asking more money if
Yeah.
they did it up. And it doesn't take a huge investment to get there is the point.
No, because so often it's just removing things and then tweaking some other stuff. It's not always, going and getting the most expensive furniture and everything you can do.
No, like this needed some tweaking and then maybe a little home goods run. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know, do you as a realtor, and I don't know if you have clients that have rentals, do you feel like is there a feeling like, "Oh, well, it's just a rental, so I don't wanna put a lot of money into it because it does get a lot of use and abuse," type thing? Because I was wondering if that's like a challenge of it.
Mhm.
Were people not understanding that you can get really stylish things affordably? I'm just curious if you have a take on that.
I think that it's kind of a benefit because I would say in those situations, there's always, I would even say, a more clear budget where I think a lot of us, when we're doing a space in our home, it's like, I want to spend this, but I maybe would go up to that. And if I fall in love with things, I will.
Right.
Um, Investors have very clear budgets. So sometimes you do need to get a little tricky on how to squeeze everything in.
Right.
But we're the people who know where to find the
The
affordable, like, high
good
impact
stuff. Yeah.
items. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
or stuff that's gonna take the abuse, like there's definitely things that are more commercial grade,
yeah.
right? So, like obviously a sofa that you put in a rental, you're gonna want a fabric that can withstand or a slip. One of the rentals we were in, actually, she had slip covers and she would just clean them and they
Oh,
were pretty light colored. And I have to say, even us staying there with our small dog,
mhm.
um, we didn't really have it didn't really get that dirty, and if anything got, like, a little only because 'cause I'm just, like, a perfectionist when I leave, I want it left really nice, but, like, everything just wiped off really easy,
Yeah,
but I remember the real estate agency told me she did slip covers and she'll just clean them a couple times a year if she needs to,
so smart.
um, but I will say out there to people who have, rentals, don't don't toss it off as, "Well, that's just a rental, so whatever." Yes, in some regards, you're not gonna want, like, the most expensive whatever, but you do need to put money into styling it properly because you will be booked and booked at a higher rate,
Mhm.
and the investment from somebody like me or Molly isn't massive at all, like, you will recoup that and then some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when I completed that one, their first review mentioned the decor, and I was like,
See
"Yes."
that?
Yeah. So, and there is proof. So, and we've worked together since too. So,
Yeah, and I know the ones where we go, like, the ones that just have a little bit more upkeep on the decor, and
yeah.
again, it's not even, like, super high-end decor, but it's just, like, it works for that area, and it's just fresh compared to some of the others. Those always rent out and book up first thing,
Yep.
and the rates at those are higher.
Yep. It's true.
So, I mean, it is very interesting. I mean, I just this other place I kept looking at, I was like, "Man, I could, like, zhuzh that up in, like, a half a day for her, and she would just have that thing booked."
You could offer to do that for the stay.
I know. I'm like, "Oh my god." It's like, "You wanna barter? I'll stay there for a week and I'll redo your place," because literally, I was like it was just a little gem of a place, and I find projects like that really fun,
Uh-huh.
um, because you can just, you know make something out of nothing. But
Mhm. And leave a little piece of you.
yep. So this is all good. Let's wrap up with any websites or social media platforms. Let the audience know, and then we're gonna put them in the show notes for you.
Okay, awesome.
Yep.
Um, and then, yeah, Instagram is awesome for me. It's at molly.cody. And then my website is www, World Wide Web, .codyresidential.com.
Yep. Great. Well, so we'll put all that in the show notes so everyone will know where to find you. And it's been so great chatting with you. And I'd love to have you on any other time as things kind of move along in the rental space. If you want
Yeah,
to come on and talk and we'll do a whole show about that because that is just a booming segment for sure in so many ways for
that was
investors and
so
everybody. Yeah.
yeah, let's
All
do
right,
it.
Molly. Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. It was so nice.
We'll chat soon.
Okay.
Take care.